go live. So we'll see. We'll give people a second. That should send some alerts out somewhere as well. Right. Okay. Let's do. Okay. Go like that. I'm just going to pull up the questions. So hello, everybody. If you're joining us, I'll do introductions in a second. We're just figuring out a couple of the last technical bits here. So get yourself comfortable. Hopefully you've got yourself a nice cup of tea or something. And we will begin very, very shortly on Take a Deep Breath. I always see some of these slick channels where they've got the countdown happening and they just go straight into it. And I'm not quite there yet. So, right. Okay. So I put some questions out to the audience. So we've got a couple of bits to steer us as well. Great, which is good. And if
excellent.
Here, we're almost ready. Almost ready. There we go. Down here. Right. Okay. So hello to Amit, and hello to Glenn, and hello to Jamilia. So if you guys want to just pop your names in the place below, maybe where you're from, where you're watching from right now, that would be ace. And I'll just do some quick introductions just to get us started. So this is my second live breathcast ever. Gray is much more familiar with this sort of stuff than I am. So a seasoned veteran of live breathing experiences. Welcome to Take a Deep Breath, Breathwork channel. We've got over 75,000 subscribers now and over 100 videos dedicated to breathwork. And we've also got Breathcast, and this is a live Breathcast where we get to have conversations with some of the most interesting experts around the planet when it comes to breathing exercises. And I'm so pleased to be joined by my friend Gray Caws, who is a master oxygen advantage instructor and a Buteyko instructor, and we'll get into some of that today if you don't know what those sort of things are. And you're also part of Chi Running. Gray, I'm going to get some of this wrong now, and you've got your own Adventures in Movement company. So I've probably done an awful job of explaining who you are. Would you mind just giving me a little bit more of anything I might have missed there?
No, you've covered most of it, Mike. Mike, thank you first of all for giving me this opportunity to come on your live broadcast, and I'm just admiring your background there as well. I think the on-air sign looks fabulous. And is that a pair of, that's the lungs as well, isn't it?
That's some fluffy lungs that we've got going on. And I wanted to stand for this podcast, so the energy was there. So I had to elevate everything up on top of the shelf.
And I sat down like this. I'm just resting.
You're normally the one standing when we have our conversations.
I know. So I move around a little bit. I move about a little bit. No, that's great. Yeah, I'm Gray, a founder of Adventures in Movement, which is a company that I run. I've actually added "and breath" to the end of it, but that's quite a long title now. So it was just Adventures of Movement. Now it's Adventures in Movement and Breath. I teach Oxygen Advantage. I met Patrick McEwen back in 2016, I think it was, when he first wrote the book and did one of his first trainings, did the first masterclass with him. And went over to Galway and had a fantastic time. He's got a beautiful place out there, perfect place to breathe. And so I've been working with Patrick since 2016. I also then went on to do the Buteyko course that Patrick teaches. But I suppose I came to fitness, I mean, late on in life, really. At school, I hated it. I was crap at sports, didn't enjoy sports at all. I was the classical last one to be picked for the football team. But the one thing I did really, really enjoy when I was at school was cross-country running. And I think that was because I was just outside, and I'm a bit of a loner, really. And it was actually quite nice just to get out, get muddy, get wet. So that was what I enjoyed in terms of sport, but I didn't really think of it as a sport. And it's really weird because it's almost like come full circle now, is that now I did my fitness training 2010. So I changed careers in about 2010. I was a graphic designer and a web designer.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And then went, no, I don't want to do this anymore. I'm going to go and do fitness training because I was really into my running. So I wanted to explore a little bit more. I wanted to understand a little bit more about the body. And actually, my mum had been diagnosed with cancer, and I was going through that, looking after her, and I really wanted to be able to help. So it's like, what can I learn? What can I learn about breathing? What can I learn to help people who are not well? And I suppose that was sort of like the thing that set me off to really think I want to get into the health world. and help people basically. So trained as a personal trainer, 2010, Premier Global. Worked with a guy now, he's very big in the animal flow world, Richard Scrivener. I don't know if anybody has heard of Richard, but he's a really great coach. He was working with me back in 2010, teaching me kettlebells and stuff. So I really got into my kettlebell training. And I started working with a running coach, with an England athletics running coach. And this guy, Robbie McNellis, who taught me, he was the first guy first person to say to me, look, when you're running, you nasal breathe. So what was great is I'd not come from a background as a runner when I was younger. I got into it in my 40s, and the first coach I was working with was suggesting nasal breathing. So we were doing track work, nasal breathing. And I remember going to the first session with him, and he said to me, right, lie down. I'm like, oh my God, what's going to go on here? And he said, I'm just watching your breath, because he didn't tell me what he was doing. He was watching the breath rate. And I thought, this is really weird. I've come for running lessons. Why are you watching how I'm breathing? But looking back now, I'm fascinated by that, because I'm so pleased that I found Robin, because he really gave me a great introduction when I was starting with my running training and my running technique into breath work. He's a cardio physiotherapist. He works in London. He works at the Wellington in London. So he taught me a lot in terms of breath work, and that got me interested in chi running. So as you mentioned there, Mike, I trained with Danny Dreyer, who is the founder of chi running, and it was Danny who then introduced me to Patrick, because Danny and Patrick had been talking, and Danny's in the States and Patrick's over in Ireland. So Danny said, speak to Gray, because Gray's nearer to you and everything, and that's how I got introduced to Patrick, because with the chi running, there's a lot of synergy in terms of it's not about killing yourself. It's not about being out of breath when you're running. It's all about centering yourself and bringing that focus into the center of the body and creating power through relaxation. So there was a lot of synergy in chi running and the oxygen advantage. So that's when I then came to train with Patrick. And actually, from the end of last year, I've stepped away a little bit from chi running at the minute, because what I found is I really wanted, breathing is like the starting point. Breathing is the foundation. And there's one quote that I use all of the time with my clients, that if breathing is not normalized, no other movement pattern can be. And I think if there's one thing anybody takes away from any of the breath work practices, I think that is the piece to take away. Because if you're not breathing efficiently, you're not going to move as efficiently as you can be. So quite often breath work is like, here's your breath work, here's your movement. But actually, you can't separate the two. So what I've done in terms of my own offering, if you like, and my own practice is really focused on breath. Because what I found is a lot of the breath, if you focus on the breath, a lot of the movement comes more efficiently. So an example of that, I had a client and she was really struggling with like forward head posture. And you kept saying, right, lift up, nice and tall. And she couldn't. It was like, I can't. She wouldn't get it in her mind about the cue lifting tall and running tall or whatever, just didn't work. And then I said to her, oh, just close your mouth, just breathe through the nose. And I watched, and she went, and her head sat on top of her spine. And I just thought that was a real sort of like light bulb moment for me, because I thought, actually, if you focus on the breath, or if you allow the breath to control the movement or be in control of the movement, then we're going to move efficiently. So say, for example, when you're running, sorry, I'm going off on one now. So
keep going. This is great. No, please.
Stop, because you only asked me to tell me a little about yourself. But it's just interesting how I got to the place that I'm at now, actually. And so, but what I found is a lot of cues of breath can help with other movement. So say, for example, I know some of the guys watching this have just been doing my 1 squat challenge, which was a real scream, because it's like, just do 1 squat a day. But we did it really slowly, and we did it with control of the breath. So actually, it was a really, really good challenge, because people weren't trying to squat. They were sitting down with the breath in control. The minute they lost the control of the breath, we stopped the movement. So they lost the challenge if they lost control of the breath. Yeah, so that's about where I'm at now. I am at the minute training now to be a Qigong coach. So this is, although I've been teaching Qi running since 2011, obviously there's an element, understand an element of Qi, and the whole point of Qi running was taken from the principles of Tai Chi. So I had an understanding of that, but I wanted to dig a little deeper into the nature of Qigong, because there was a lot of the movements that I was using without actually thinking of it as a Qigong movement, because it ties in so well with the breath. And the great thing about Qigong is it's that mind, body, breath connection. It's moving with intention. So that's where I'm at now, basically. Still learning my Qigong instructor. One of the great things with lockdown is I found a guy in the States. So I'm working with a guy called Lee Holden, who is really well known in the States. And he's fantastic. It's really, really good. So it's all online.
Very cool. Yeah. And we'll get into this. So I think we're together for the next sort of 45 minutes to an hour. And it's part breathcast interview, part will you take us through some breathing exercises, part let's bring you guys in the audience, because you've got the ability to ask questions here as well, which is one of the coolest things about doing a live cast like this. So I'm going to be looking all over the place, Gray. Apologies. I'm going to do my best to give my attention to you, but there's the audience. Just a couple of bits. There were a few people that got onto the Zoom in error, just a couple of technical errors. So if you're sitting on the Zoom and you can hear this, come off the Zoom and go on to the YouTube. I'm not sure if that's possible or not, but hopefully I've put that in the chat window as well.
That was my fault. I invited everybody to our private Zoom link.
So why are all these people jumping on?
Who are these people?
A lot of extra oxygen. Oh, and I wore my Oxygen Advantage.
I didn't. I'm just a mess.
Oh, you've let me down. I'm standing in the desk and everything. I'm joking. So let me just quickly whiz through the chat then. So we've got Tamer in Cairo. I don't know if you can still hear me. We've got Glenn in Wisconsin. Jill in Sheffield. Hello to Sheffield and Jill. Mario from Georgia. Is that Georgia the country or Georgia the state? I'll be interested to know. We've got Tamer, who's a triathlete and Pilates instructor, and Tim been using Wim Hof and box breathing. And we've got Jeff from Los Angeles. Hi, Jeff. Breathwork videos, great. Irene from Zambia. Wow. Okay, cool. Some people from London. Right. Yeah. So wonderful. So what I would say, guys, is start popping any questions you've got for us in the chat, and we'll do our best to answer them. I also put a poll on to YouTube, just asking what sort of things would people like to talk about. And 47% of people would like to talk about functional breathing. 20% about better sleep. So anything we can talk about when it comes to sleep and breath work, which I know are really closely interlinked. And 23% around increased sports performance. So definitely some of the stuff from the world of Oxygen Advantage and Buteyko there, I think. But what I was thinking, Gray, is, let me just put my phone out of the way, is maybe, can we start with a couple of breathing exercises just to get us all centered in the place and in the mode? Will that be all right? Just guide us through. Because one thing I absolutely love about you, and you just covered it off a second ago, was the movement and the breath together. Because so often it's let's lie down in a place and do the breathing, or let's go and do some stretching. But I love how you combine the two. So no pressure. But yeah, if you want to take us through a couple of exercises or an exercise, that'd be ace.
So you want some movement exercise or
just something where maybe people can just stand or even sit, and just something maybe, I love it when you're using the arms.
It's quite handy to use your arms. Yes, I like that one. All right, then let's, if you are comfortable to stand, and I suppose I've got to stand up now because you make me feel bad sitting down. I can run and get my Oxygen Advantage too. So just imagine I've got Oxygen Advantage written on here.
We'll superimpose it on later.
Oh yeah, actually that's a good idea, isn't it? So I'm going to give you some really, really simple exercises and movements actually to really focus on, first of all, releasing any tension in the body, because that's a really good place to start. So let's start off just by doing a little bit of shaking. Now, what is interesting, what you might notice as you're shaking is, I'm going to just hold my shoulders a little bit. So actually, just see if you can let the shoulders go and just let the vibration go through the body. And if you're
careful when I'm jumping, because I'm going to shake all of this.
Oh yeah,
don't jump.
Don't.
If I'm not
we don't
moving
want
as
any
violently.
signage dropping off.
Oh, we've lost me as well.
Oh,
hang on. Carry on.
he's there. He's there. He's shaking. He's gone. Just shake.
I'm back.
Yeah, don't bang. Don't jump up and down too much. If all your set is going to collapse. I thought it was a virtual background there, Mike. But if it's real, if you can, if nobody's got anything that's going to fall off the shelves, just tap your heels into the ground as well. So actually, what is really good about vibration is it actually creates movement and flow and energy through the body. If you think of like sports performances, they're all shaking out before they go running. So you're just shaking. Pay a particular attention to the neck and the shoulders, because again, it's a part where normally it feels quite tight.
Yeah, I really struggle with my shoulders, always so tight here.
Yeah, so this is a great one. So don't actually move the shoulders, just let the vibration. I know you can't, when you haven't got a set behind you, if you just tap the heels in, it's really, really nice because you feel it vibrating up the body. You might feel it in the neck, in the shoulders, in the ears. And just bring your attention to the breath. So see if we can just keep the lips lightly together. If it's comfortable, rest the tongue just gently on the roof of the mouth. And just let the breath be easy. So you're just breathing easy. So we're not actually taking any conscious control of the breath, it's just easy breathing. And just relax that. I can see Mike, so just let those arms go, let the shoulders go. Even if you're not banging your heels into the ground, you can still just let the shoulders go. Think looseness, loose. Another guy I'm working with in terms of Tai Chi and Qigong is a fantastic master Tai Chi guy in America called Larry Camarada. And he says, loose, keep it loose. And that's a really nice way to think about it. Now we're going to take a little bit of conscious control of the breathing. So I'm going to ask you to breathe a fuller breath in through the nose. So you just breathe in through the nose. And then it's like you're getting up in the morning and you're just sighing it out. Just nice and easy. And again, it's just letting go, breathing in through the nose. And have a real intention when you're just breathing out. It's like, it's nice, got rid of everything. So it's not just a sound, there's an intention behind that sound. So just one more time, everybody's really shook up, but one more breath in through the nose. And so nice. And then just slow it down and just give the legs a little bit of a shake if you need to shake the legs. And then bring your feet together. And if you're comfortable, just balance, just bring your palms together and just balance your palms on your belly. And you might be able to hear the birds in the background singing away here. Yeah. It's not a tape, it's real. And if you're comfortable, close your eyes. If you're comfortable with that, just close your eyes. And you may just feel the body just doing gentle swaying, maybe side to side, maybe forwards and back. Just allow that to happen. So don't even don't think of controlling it or doing anything. And just bring awareness now to your feet. and the heels, and really feel connected to the ground. So feel really grounded and stable and strong. But at the same time, you're not gripping. So you've got soft feet, soft ankles, soft knees. And just work your way up through the thighs into the pelvis. And then bring your attention to the base of the spine. And as you just take a natural breath in, so again, we're not doing any controlling, as you take a natural breath in, just feel the spine extend and lengthen. So you're just very gently lifting from the crown, but it's so subtle. So just as the breath goes in, as you breathe in, just lift and lengthen up. And then soften and relax as the breath goes out. Again, this is all just allowing the breath, not conscious control. In Qigong, this posture, this standing posture is called bamboo in the wind. So it's a really great way of visualizing. If you imagine a piece of bamboo, it's very strong. The structure is really, really strong, but if there's a breeze, if there's a wind, then that bamboo will move in the wind, but it won't break. Another visualization from Qigong is that you're connecting through the feet into the ground. So you're connecting to the earth's energy through the ground. And at the same time, you're lifting, gently lifting the crown of your head to the sky to connect to the energy of the universe or the energy of the sky. So feel this really strong structure, but softness throughout the structure. So shoulders relaxed, belly relaxed, calves relaxed, feet as relaxed as possible. And then bring your attention to the breath again. And a really easy place to notice the breath is in the nostrils or in the nasal cavity, because you can really sense that physical sensation. So really enjoy that feeling, that physical sensation of the slightly cooler air coming in, slightly warmer leaving. So you're just allowing the body and you are allowing the breath. Maybe have a little check-in at the top of the breath. What do you notice at the top of the inhale? What do you notice at the bottom of the exhale? What do you feel in the belly? Do you feel the belly gently rising and falling as you're breathing in and out? bit like playing detective, just checking and noticing what's going on in the body. And like with any practice, when you are bringing attention internally, then your mind wanders off. So you're thinking, oh, what was I doing this morning? Or what have I got to do tonight? But that's human, it's natural, so that's normal. So don't worry about that. But what is really easy to do when you realize your mind has wandered off, because we don't see it wandering off, it just disappears somewhere. Remember to bring your focus back to where you were paying attention. It's a really good exercise in focus and concentration. So rather than think, oh, my mind's wandered off and that's bad, use it as an exercise to strengthen that awareness. So just gently guide your attention back to the belly. Do you notice the breath in the belly? Belly is soft. And then on the next inhale, if you had your eyes closed, just open your eyes. And just bring awareness back into the space around you. Step your feet out. And maybe have a little stretch if you need a little stretch. That was a big crack in my collarbone.
I heard that.
And shake out a little bit again. I love doing that exercise because I can just close my eyes. I don't have to look at anybody. Not that we're looking at anybody, because I can't see anybody on Zoom. But yeah, how was that? How was that for you, Mike?
I really enjoyed that. And I think one of the big differences between you and I is that I'm always in this turbo mode. And I love speaking to you when we have our regular catch-ups, because there's always that sense of just calming down. And I remember once I said to you, I've just read David Goggins' book and I need to stretch the hell out of myself. And you're like, well, do you? So no, that was really lovely. And as soon as I got into that, I was like, I need to do this so much more. It's so good just to take that time out. And especially when you're busy, it's so difficult, I think anyway, to be able to pull yourself out of a situation, go, I need to do something like that. So thank you. That was lovely.
I think my take on stuff like that is you only need to spend a few minutes doing it. So if you can get into the habit of, I don't know, in the morning, talking about sleep, there's, I can give you a bit more information on that as we talk through. But one of the things with sleep, I did a course, I attended a course by, I was talking about Larry Karamada and his wife, Linda, in the States, and they do a natural sleep recovery program. And it's fascinating because it's not just about sleep hygiene, because it's like, oh, yeah, no blue light, breathe, natural breathing, everything like that. And you still get to bed, you've had a hot bath, but you can't sleep. And I'm stressed out. And they said something really, really just resonated with me, that you prepare for sleep during the day. So if you've had a stressful day and you haven't had moments out, then you go to bed, no matter what you've done to try and wind yourself down, you're still going to have trouble sleeping. And one of the biggest things that came home to me with that is, if you can in the morning, get outside, take your glasses off and just get some light in that first, they said it's like the first hour or an hour and a half of dawn. And actually this is a brilliant practice to do for that. And even if you do 2 minutes of doing that and then closing your eyes before you have your coffee, because you could spend 10 minutes on your iPhone checking your emails and everything like that. So what I've tried to get into the habit, because it's habits, isn't it? It's those little habits. And when I'm working with clients, rather than saying, oh, you need to do 20 minutes breathing exercises, because if you prescribe so many exercises, like you say, we've all got a life to live. And have I got time to do 20 minutes meditation? And if my mind's wandering and I'm getting stressed because of that, it's almost pointless doing it. But if you do something like this, 10 minutes in the morning, 2 minutes in the morning, and get in the habit, there's so much going on just in that stance, because your body is almost like unwinding. Because you've narrowed your base of support, that's quite easy to stand like that. And if you bend your knees a bit, you can be really stable and strong. Because you narrow your base of support, there's more like, whoa, what's going on here? And because you close your eyes, you lose that sense in terms of balance. So your body's going, right, how am I finding balance? How am I finding balance? And it will naturally balance itself. And the breath is finding balance. So rather than do your breathing work, not so there's anything wrong in doing breath work sitting, because that's great. But if you can do it standing, you've got the benefits of you're balancing your breath, you're balancing your body, and you're also balancing your mind with that little practice. It works wonders.
Yeah,
so it's a really good one.
Oh, beautiful. I have to say as well, the birds outside, wherever you are, just
I know.
brought it to another level. I was like, oh my God.
I hired
really
them
helped anchor me.
especially for this little presentation.
Jill's put bamboo in the wind really sticks for me. So I like that there.
Do you know, a lot of people have said that. A lot of people. I brought it into my Oxygen Advantage training with the new set that we've got on. And there's a couple of people there, sort of like really high-end athletes. And they're like, I love this. I love this. And it's like, because it just really takes them away. And you don't have to think. You don't have to do anything.
Yeah. That's lovely. It's funny, I read or heard a quote. I can't remember what book I was listening to now. It was only yesterday or the day before. That's bad, isn't it? Or maybe it was a podcast. But the quote was something like, the strongest trees grow in the strongest wind. And it was something to do with your comfort zone. So I really like that. Kind of
there was one of my clients who comes to some of the classes, Tom, sent me a link actually about that. I think there was some place where they had grown trees in a dome or something, and they got to a certain height, but then they kept dying. And the people were like, they couldn't work out why these trees were dying when they got to a certain height in this dome, and it was because there was no wind. So it's actually the wind strengthens the roots, because obviously when there's movement, the roots go deeper down into the ground to actually stabilize. So that's like, again, that nice visualization. If you want to be grounded and stable and strong, is rooting to the earth, but not forcing yourself and rooting to the earth. And I think that's really important, again, from a breath point of view, because what we can often think about with breath work is like, oh, well, the breathing muscles are the diaphragm and the ribs. So I just need to focus on my diaphragm and my ribs. But the foot in connection to the ground, every time we step, it's affecting that whole body as you step forward. So that's affecting how your diaphragm works, how your ribs work. If your diaphragm's tight, if your hips tight, it's all interconnected through the whole body. So that's why it's important to make sure that you're not just focusing on breathing, but you're focusing on moving. And like people were talking about functional movement or functional breathing, you're functionally breathing as you're going to pick up your water bottle, or you're functionally breathing as you're going to go and pick up a calculator, or you're cooking, or you're reaching up. That's all functional breathing and functional movement. You don't have to do any fancy work or anything to do that.
So every 25, 30,000 breaths a day, how are they being delivered and what are you doing with them? That's really interesting. Cool. Okay, so can we do a couple more breathing exercises as we move through? I think we can do a bit of Q&A and then we can jump back in if that's all right with you. So let me just have a quick look through the comments. Hello from Cincinnati to Josh, and Flicky says they're feeling very relaxed now. Thank you. And we live under a dome, Robert. Yeah, I don't know. I think there might be something to that. Yeah, I definitely feel there's something around comfort zone, isn't there? And not allowing us to get ourselves as strong as our ancestors were. Okay, so should we talk a bit about sleep? Because I'm keen to, maybe I'll share a couple of my things that I do, and then I'd love to hear some of yours. So for me, and interestingly, you mentioned bath there. So I don't have a bath every day, and I'm a big sauna guy or person. And for me, the sauna was the big thing for COVID. Before COVID, I would make sure I got in the sauna every day, as many days as I could, down the gym. And that was my time. There's no phone. You know, you're all in your underwear, so you have some fantastic conversations because nothing's kind of, you know, there's no pretense really going on
Should
there.
be
So
naked in a sauna, not in your underwear.
Not in England, but yeah. I've got some funny stories about Poland actually, but probably not for this podcast. So for me, sauna was that meditation, I guess, where I would have that time, you know, either alone or talking to people. But the bath for me has been that thing now where I'll try and get the bath almost as hot as I can stand it without, you know, doing any damage, and then having that time, and I find that clears the mind because I'm able just to think, and you know, there's no phone in there, it's just a candle, so I'm getting no bad light, it's just, you know, a very balanced light beam that's in there. And for me as well, the big thing is I tend to put the glasses on, and the jury's still out for me on those glasses. I have to say, when I don't notice that I fall asleep any better or not, but the science that I've seen anyway seems to say that those glasses help. But the big thing for me is the cool bedroom. It's not looking at screens before bed. And then for me as well, it's a bit about some of the breathing exercises. So what I love to do is just take some really slow nasal breaths in and out, and just, again, I don't know if that's a Patrickism, but the slightly cooler air coming in and the slightly warmer air cooling out. And normally 9 times out of 10, that's enough for me just to kind of get my brain out of that thinking mode, and I start to kind of relax and unwind. And there's been a couple of times where maybe I've got a bit of stress and anxiety going in life, and you know, you wake up at 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. Again, if I remember to go back to the breath and just focus on that, it normally takes me out. Whereas if my brain wants to get into something and think about it, if I allow it, I can be up then, you know, from 3 o'clock onwards. So just going back to the breath. But I know you've got devices and gadgets and stuff, so I'd love to hear some of your thoughts around sleep and what you do.
Yeah. Again, I'd learned a lot just from this session that I had with Larry and Linda. So I'm not a sleep expert, but what I would say is that if we're not sleeping and it creates anxiety, then we have that anxiety about not being able to sleep, and it is like that vicious circle. So that's the first thing we've got to think about, is don't get stressed out about not sleeping. And something that I've found when I'm particularly busy, like I've got a lot of stuff going on at the minute, courses and things. If I wake up at 4 or 5 in the morning, what I used to do is I used to be like, oh shit, I can't get back to that. I need to get back to that. I need to sleep because I've got this meeting or I've got that practice to do. But actually what I do now is I'm in that mindset of, right, I'm awake, and that's good that I'm awake, and I'm not going to try and get back to sleep. And that has definitely helped for me from that sort of like mind connection. And the other thing is, if we talk about, right, breathe light and do all of these breathing exercises to help you to sleep, that only works if you are used to doing breathing exercises and that you're functionally breathing in everyday life. Because if you just go, oh, I haven't really done any breathing practice and I haven't focused on my breath, but now I need to do some deep breathing before I go to sleep, then the breathing exercise is almost linked to I can't sleep. So psychologically, it doesn't necessarily help you from that point of view just to do a breathing exercise to get to sleep.
Yes.
Having said that, there are some breathing exercises that I use, like the breathe light, and like you say there, Mike, that light, slow, deep breath with a little bit of a pause at the bottom of the exhale. So that's quite nice and calming and relaxing. So you just add that 5-second pause at the bottom of the exhale. Or the 4-7-8, like somebody mentioned box breathing. I think you mentioned box breathing. 4-7-8 is a really good one because I can really feel my heart beating. And if you do in for 4, hold for 7, out for 8, then I can feel when you get to the top of the in and hold, I can feel my heart rate slowing. And it's fascinating because if it's like you're 4 o'clock in the morning and you wake up and you start thinking, I need to do this, I need to do that. You look at the clock. The minute you look at the clock, your mind's going. So you're going, oh shit, it's 4 o'clock in the morning. So don't look at the clock. And sometimes if I'm a little bit stressed, I can feel the 4-7-8 and my heart rate isn't lowering. But sometimes if I'm just woken up and I'm feeling quite relaxed, then my heart rate will really lower. But what I will do then, and I mean, I'm lucky, I don't have to get up and do 7 till 6 work or whatever. So I can have a little nap at lunchtime. So if like this morning, it's a Sunday morning, but I was awake really, really early because I had things to do and stuff. So I just got up and I went out running early. I didn't get stressed out about not being able to get back to sleep. Going on, because you mentioned the gadgets. So I use a Whoop and I use an Aura Ring. And I only have the two because I want to see whether they both say the same thing. And also clients have recommended it. So if I recommend stuff to clients, what I find interesting, so I've been using these for about a year now. Actually, it's exactly a year on the Whoop. Now, this is just anecdotal. This is not giving advice to anybody. But what I find, I have better quality sleep when I've done intermittent fasting. Tells me that. I have better quality sleep when I've done some meditation before I go to sleep. And I have better quality sleep if I'm in bed at 10 o'clock. So that's what this feedback is giving me. And it's pretty accurate. I'm not saying it's like 100% accurate. But what is great is having the feedback over a year from these to showing me that my heart rate variability is better. My resting heart rate drops quicker when I'm going to sleep. The other thing you mentioned there about cool bedroom, I got something called I've forgotten what it's called. What's it called?
Chili pad, isn't it?
Chili pad, that's it. And it's a bit noisy. Which is a bit annoying, but it's fascinating. So I whack it on high before I go to bed. So you get these things because it's water, but it's not like a water bed. And it warms the bed. So you get into bed really cozy and everything. You can do your bit of reading. But then you whack it down to about 18 degrees. And if I take it down to 18, it's never cold, but you can use, like I use a, what do they call those blankets? Weighted blanket.
Yes. Yeah.
So I use a weighted blanket, which is very comforting. So you can feel warm, but still a bit chilly. And again, looking at the Aura Ring gives you body temperature. And with the Aura Ring, that says, with the chili pad, that says good body temperature. And again, when I use that, I tend to sleep better. It tends to show me that I sleep better.
Yeah.
But I think the biggest thing, I think the daylight is important. Circadian rhythms obviously is really, really important. And that's one of the things about getting out first thing in the morning, just getting some fresh air and getting the yellow. I think it was, I might be wrong on this because again, I'm not a sleep expert, but I think it's getting the yellow light. So I love to go running early in the morning, but if I can't get out running, and again, I'm lucky because I've got a garden with the birds in the garden, I can literally just open the door and look at the sky. So you get that yellow light into your eyes. Yeah. So I think those are the key things, as you say, for me, for sleep. But it's not to get into that pattern of worrying about it, because you can just create anxiety.
100%.
And Larry said, this is not me, Larry said, the bedroom is for sleep and for sex, nothing else. So I don't have a TV in the bedroom or anything. And
what about your phone? Does your phone make it upstairs as the alarm clock, or do you have a...
Not upstairs, because I'm in a ground floor flat. Yeah. If I go upstairs, I'm with the neighbours. Yeah, I'm up there. I don't use the phone. I leave the phone in the room, and I use one of those Philips wake up light things, which are quite nice.
Oh,
I forgot,
cool.
It's like sunrise, sunset. Again, I think that's got yellow light in it. It's quite expensive, so it better have some yellow light in it.
You're like the James Bond of sleep gadgets, Gray.
Yeah.
So out of interest, would you, because I've got neither of those, would you recommend a Whoop or an Aura Ring, or would you say get both if you can afford both, or does it not really matter?
It depends. Again, what I would say with gadgets or biofeedback is the key word on that is feedback. So you could wake up and think, oh, I feel great, and look at your phone and it says you had a really bad night's sleep, or you've only got X amount of energy level. So actually the feedback can create how you feel. So I don't recommend people just to rely on gadgets. It's like a heart rate monitor. A heart rate monitor when you're running is great. So you can say, I felt as if I was running at that effort level, but my heart rate is up here at the minute. So there must be some differentiation. But if you are just relying on, I have to run at heart rate this, that's all right for maybe certain training sessions. But if you're just relying on gadgets to tell you, I would say leave the gadgets out of it, because you can wear all these gadgets to try and monitor stuff, which just creates more stress. I wear them because I like to know what's going on, and I know other clients use them, and it's interesting for me, but it's not going to solve the sleep problem.
Oh, that's interesting. Just going back to your anxiety and sleep, I think that's I really suffered with this. So I watched on Joe Rogan, Dr. Matthew Walker. He's from Britain, and I think he's somewhere in California now. And he did a 20-year sleep study, and he wrote a book called Why We Sleep.
Yeah.
And it scared the bejesus out of me, that book. Oh my God. And I haven't even finished the book because and again, I might be doing the book injustice here, but he goes into a lot of detail about the disadvantages of not getting a good night's sleep. And he talks about Alzheimer's and cancers and weight gain and all these things. And really good information you need to know. Like, for example, if you've had a bad night's sleep, not only do you crave foods that are worse for you, that are higher in calories, you actually, the mechanism that tells you when you're full also gets turned off or gets messed about with as well. So you end up eating more and bad food. And then that obviously links to, obesity and cancers and all that sort of stuff. So it took me personally a good year to get over that. And I was like, oh my God, I need my 8 hours. If I don't get my 8 hours, I'm going to get all these problems. And then your sleep gets impacted. So I think that's really good. I guess I'm not sure what advice I would give there, because if you start to research sleep and you get the panic, it's how do you kind of pull yourself out of that? And I think it's just saying, for me anyway, good to get your thoughts, is just let the natural rhythms take care of itself. Do those things we've spoke about, get some daylight in the morning, set your room up for success for the night, and, try and make it cool if you can, make it nice and dark when the sun goes down, and do all those things, and then trust in the process of sleep, I guess. I don't know if you've got anything else you think we could add to that to help people not worry about getting sleep.
Yeah, I think you're right. Again, it's coming back to the simplicity of stuff, because we can really complicate stuff. It's like with the breathing, isn't it? It's like with the balance, is we can really overcomplicate things, but actually just come back to the really simple simplicity of it. So as you say, get out early in the morning if you can. We've all got stresses during the day, so we can't get rid of stress. It's how we cope with stress, and it's our coping strategies with stress, which is what the breathing practice will help with, and the movement practice will help with. So if you can set yourself up during the day for eating well, doing your breath work as and when, not overthinking it. Yes. Doing some movement, doesn't have to be exercise. I always say to people, stop exercising, because I think exercising, they're ticking the exercise box. So just move and be and enjoy what you're doing rather than exercising. And yeah, just be aware of the circadian rhythms. And I think the biggest thing for me is if you can get to bed a little bit earlier, that does make a difference for me personally. Yeah. If I go to bed, 11 is most probably the latest, and then I start feeling it after that. Or the other thing is eating earlier as well. So I know I mentioned intermittent fasting, but again, I notice a difference if I eat dinner at like 6, then I sleep better. If I eat it at 8 or 9, then the sleep doesn't feel as good. And I'm a northerner from north of England, so our dinner was always at lunchtime. So we used to have, as a kid, we used to have a big meal at lunchtime, and then I used to hardly eat anything in the evenings, maybe just a sandwich or something like that. So actually, that's most probably the best way to eat. So have maybe, if you're having 3 meals a day, which is not always necessary, I'm not a nutritionist, but isn't always necessary, then make sure, I would say, that you get hydrated well in the morning and eat well at lunchtime. And then caffeine as well. Some people are affected by caffeine, other people aren't affected by caffeine. I think caffeine takes about 12 hours to leave the system. I might be wrong there again, because I'm not a nutritionalist. So if you have a coffee at midday, that coffee is still going to be in the system in the evening. Tea has got caffeine in it. So I would keep all the caffeinated drinks and the hydration earlier on. And then just start, you're not winding down to go to sleep in the afternoon, but you're winding down in your food intake and in your water intake. You've hydrated and done everything, all the sugars and everything more in the morning.
Yeah, I love that. And I was very guilty of drinking too much at night in terms of having too many cups of tea and stuff. And then that just gets you at 3 o'clock in the morning if you're not careful. I'm going to jump into a couple of questions, Greg, because I saw something quite interesting in the chats, actually. Where's it gone? it was to do with exercise, weightlifting, nasal breathing, and getting headaches about an hour afterwards. And people were interested in knowing if you had any thoughts on that. So people, I guess, yeah, using the nose when they're doing the strength conditioning, but then getting a headache later on.
Good, very, very good question. So when you think about exercise, which we don't do, when you think about exercise, nasal breathing is predominantly for endurance training. So if I'm lifting, I don't know, a light weight, and I'm doing, I don't know, or whatever, or doing squats, if I'm doing endurance training, you're doing loads of reps. So you can do 15, 20 reps or whatever. So with that, you're breathing easy. So I can easily breathe in and out, softly in and out through my nose. If I start going into more strength training, then you're going to need a different type of breath. So this is the one thing that is often missed. So when we're looking at nasal breathing, you're not going to be nasal breathing for every single movement that you do. The key is to be in control of the breath. If you're doing any power moves, you wouldn't necessarily just nasal breathe. You wouldn't breathe in the same gear as you're breathing when you're doing endurance training. So if you're doing power moves, you may a little bit out through the mouth. Now, I know some instructors would say you don't need to do that, so you can still go through the nose. If you're swinging a kettlebell, you wouldn't do, oh, I'm just going to breathe easy, because you need that little bit of power. If I let this go and it goes through the camera, this is a nightmare. I saw that once. I was at the gym and somebody was swinging a kettlebell in front of a mirror and they let it go and it went right through the mirror. Now, this is quite light, it's only an 8K, but if you're swinging a kettlebell that's a little bit heavier, you need more of a active out breath. So there are different breath gears. Now, I had one client who will not be named, who went to do CrossFit, which is really, really high intensity, throw your weights all over the place. And he said, like you say, he came out, he's trying to nasal breathe. His head was buzzing, his nose was buzzing because he was in the wrong breath gear. So if you're doing more high intensity or more power, which is power movements, then you wouldn't just nasal breathe. But the key is, the more you nasal breathe when you're building your endurance, the later it gets to the point where you have to exhale through the mouth or with a more active out breath. And there's a big difference between when you're running and so that's a real sort of like, I've just completely lost control of my breath. I sound like a steam train. So actually, if you, and I'm not going to sprint across 3 meters, but if you're running fast and you're actually using a more out breath, a more, if somebody was talking about Pilates there, almost like a more of an active pulling in of the diaphragm to help that exhale out, then it is a more active breath. We were talking about the foot landing. That is going to be a more active breath if you're running at a speed. But the key to nasal breathing is to get to the top end of your aerobic threshold. So if you start off running and you're like this, and you're running in gear 1 and you're running at 5 effort level, you're never going to be able to improve your nasal breathing. So I use 2 gears of nasal breathing when I'm predominantly running, or think of endurance training, you don't necessarily just running. But if you use 2 gears, so the first gear is you go from walk to run, and there's hardly any increase in breath rate. So you can breathe so easy in and out through the nose. It's almost like, it should feel almost like bamboo in the wind, but you're moving. That's why it's nice to come back to that foundation. And then when you're building, when you're putting a little bit more intensity, a little bit more power into it, it's a bit a little more challenging, but you're still nasal breathing, but you'll still be doing, you might be doing a little bit more active out breath. So if you're thinking of weightlifting, say maybe you're, deadlift is the wrong one to do. So say if you're doing cable push or something like that, or bench press, just a light weight for endurance, you should be able to nasal breathe. But if you're doing something where there's a heavy weight, what is the natural thing to do? If you were doing a 1 rep max, you'd actually hold the breath because you need to brace. So that's where a breath hold will come in, or an extended exhale will come in. You can't just nasal breathe when you're doing a power move or a strength move. So remember, there's different gears. So that's how I would look at that.
That's really good, isn't it? Because I think it's easy now, isn't it? Because there's so much information now. You think about James Nestor's book and Patrick's new book, which obviously is fantastic, gets into a lot of the science. But I think it's very easy, just on the surface, a bit like reading a tweet or something. You think, oh, nasal breathing is always good. You can't ever mouth breathe. But there are these times where that function's available. It's a bit like, if you break your nose, you're going to use your mouth, aren't you? So it's reserved for certain things. I guess for me, it's that piece around, let's make your rest really good nasal breathing. If you're going for a walk, let's use your nose. Let's try and get your nasal breathing in your sleep, so that when you want to do these more explosive, energetic things, you've got that reserve. And I think something you said to me actually last year when we were talking was, let your nose breath dictate the pace at which you're running at. Something along those lines. And I love that, because I would go hell for leather, and then I get back problems and all sorts of things. But then suddenly it was frustrating at the start, because I couldn't run as fast as I was used to running, but I wasn't getting injured, and I was able to kind of keep the pace going, a more steady thing, and just using the nose. But then I'd see people going slower than me or faster than me, and they're panting through the mouth. So it's a bit more nuanced, isn't it, than just saying shut your mouth and use your nose. There's times where it's that's quite good.
It is nuanced. And you said about, if you break your nose, you have to breathe through the mouth. If you talk, you have to breathe through the mouth.
Yeah.
So we can't, unless we're going to go off into a monastery for 4 years and do silent retreats, which everybody must probably go out of their mind if we did that.
Yeah.
You have to breathe through your mouth. You have to even take breath in through your mouth. So what I'm very clear with clients is, like you say, it's not prescriptive. So don't judge yourself. I get clients coming saying, oh, I'm a chest breather. Everybody's a chest breather. Or I'm a belly breather. Nobody's just breathing. There are not separate compartments. The chest and the rib cage is one compartment. It's just about how you use that, where the breath goes, and why the breath goes to those places. So if you're a chest breather and a mouth breather, I'm a chest breather and a mouth breather, because I'm breathing in as I'm talking, and I want to get air into my chest. So when I do need a greater volume of air when I'm practicing, then I've actually got the room for that air, and I've got the mobility and the openness in the rib cage to allow that natural breath in. So yeah, it's a really important point. I did a webinar on Friday, and somebody asked, we had a Wim Hof instructor, and the guy said, well, Wim Hof and Oxygen Advantage is so different. How do they work together? Wim Hof is all about breathing through the mouth and heavy breathing, and Oxygen Advantage is all about reducing the breath and light breathing. But that is just an element of it. And nobody would go and do Wim Hof breathing 24/7, nor would I expect anybody to breathe light 24/7, because then you'd almost be like, I can't breathe, I can't take another breath in. So and then you guess what happens? You start to create tension and tighten up here, because you think, I can't breathe into the chest. So we're actually, if you overthink it, you're creating more problems for yourself.
Yeah, no, it's so interesting, isn't it? Because it's so easy in today's world just to see a headline and go, right, that's it, that's the way forward. But there is more to it. Thank you for going through that. I'm just going to go through a couple of other questions. Before I do, I promised myself I'll do a couple of little breaks. So I don't get to use this very often. So if you could, if you're new,
I want one.
I'll get you. I'll have to get you on. So if you're new here, if you can hit that subscribe button, because we've got new stuff coming out every week, new breathing exercises, all different stuff, and we do breath casts like this. We're doing live ones. But also, if you enjoyed the exercise at the start of this, great, you do these several times a week. So can you just help it? I mean, I'll put it in the description, but what's your YouTube channel?
My YouTube channel is Caws. So it's GRAYCAWS. And I do a class on a Tuesday morning and a Thursday morning at 8 a.m. London time. We do half an hour, and that goes out live and free on YouTube and on Facebook. So anybody can join in with that. I'm going to give you a link at the end of this as well, because I've got like just a free video and a free audio download if anybody wants to just jump on and sign up for that, because the class also, I do offer like a premium subscription. So all of the guys who are coming in on via Zoom just now are usually on my premium subscription. So that just gives you access to the Zoom class. So we have a quick Q&A on a Thursday morning, and there's free workshops and stuff, but I'll send you links to that. But the classes are free, broadcast live on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Yeah, no, they're wonderful. And yeah, get stuck into that. And like I said, the descriptions will be below. So gently tap those subscribe buttons. There you go. I feel better now for doing that. So I think what we'll do, if you're all right, Grave, you've got about another 10 minutes. We're live. Would that work for you? If we'll do a couple more questions, and then we can do maybe a closing breath work exercise. Yeah. Something with the arms, please, because I want to open up the chest. Yeah. And I want to open up the shoulders. I've been doing some exercises.
Yes, I've got a nice little Oxygen Advantage arm one that I gave all the OA instructors the other night. So
fantastic. Let's look forward to that in the next sort of 5-10 minutes. So what we've got going on here, some people saying that they really enjoy box breathing, and some hummingbee breathing. Somebody asked a question, which is a fantastic question. I know I'd love to hear your response. How do we get more oxygen to the brain?
Right, that's a good question. What we tend to think is that if we want to get more oxygen into the body in general, what we tend to think is I'll breathe more air in. So let's just get more and more air into the body. But actually, if just getting more air into the body doesn't necessarily mean to say that you're going to oxygenate the body well. In fact, it can have the opposite effect, because if we end up over breathing, what happens is you get rid of too much CO2, so you lower your CO2 levels down. And we actually need a certain level of CO2 in the blood. We quite often think, oh, CO2 is a waste gas, let's get rid of it, which is often one of the reasons why when you're running, you think, I need to get rid of CO2. But if you get rid of too much CO2, then the bond between the blood and the oxygen holds, so it doesn't deliver oxygen as well from the blood into the tissues. So there's, if you like, to put it simply, there's 2 stages of oxygenating the body. I know there's more stages than that, and it's much more scientific than that. But you breathe air in, so that's the first stage. So you've got air and oxygen in the lungs. You have that gas exchange in the lungs where CO2 is exhaled and oxygen is taken into the blood. So the blood is then moved around the whole body through the circulatory system. And oxygen is carried, if you imagine, like little train carriages in the blood, in hemoglobin. So these are the hemoglobin are the little train carriages that carry the oxygen around the body. And then when the CO2 builds up, the oxygen is released. So it's almost like the CO2 draws the oxygen from the blood into the tissues. So one of the easiest ways to actually get more oxygen to the tissues, if you're in a sitting resting posture, this is why meditation works, because meditation leads you towards that, but just in a very subtle way, is to work. This is what works with the breathe light exercise, where you feel you are breathing really light and slow and deep, but without creating restriction. And a few little, when we notice the bottom of the breath on our bamboo in the wind, just extending that pause at the bottom of the breath is almost like a concentration of energy. So it's almost like you're just squeezing energy. It's a really nice way of thinking about it, because CO2 is building up and it's going, right, just give me some more oxygen. So one of the practices we'll do is like a breath squeeze and concentrate oxygen into the body. And that will deliver more oxygen, create more focus, more attention to the brain, hopefully. So if you overbreathe, just think about it. If you breathe really, really heavily, and so if you're saying you're a little bit stressed, then you get brain fog and you can't focus and you can't concentrate. And what was I doing? What was I doing? So you're just losing that concentration. And that's because you are getting rid of CO2 and you're losing the connection, or you're losing oxygenation. You're not oxygenating as well. You're going into fight or flight. And fight or flight is great, because we need that. This is why we're here. This is how we survive. So fight or flight, if there's a saber-toothed tiger coming to kill you, you need to either freeze, fight, or flight. So your body goes into survival mode, And when you go into survival mode, it just delivers oxygen to the most important parts, heart, diaphragm, to actually get you out of that situation. But if we end up getting into that chronic stage of fight or flight, where we're not necessarily stressed out all of the time, but we're almost like on the edge of being stressed, global pandemic doesn't help, because everybody, whatever we say, well, we're calm and everything, there is that level of stress. There's a whole world of sort of like that feeling of stress around the world that will put you into fight or flight. So that's why the breathing practice, those light, slow, deep breathing practices, is just going to counterbalance that. It's just going to bring you back to balance, and it's going to help to oxygenate the cells and really get some good energy going. The lighting's looking great there, Mike. We're getting color changes going on.
Well, yeah, I just, we're talking about sleep, and I've got this blinking huge light that nobody can see just powering down. I look like a plonker with these red light glasses on. If you're not from England, plonker, Google it, silly person. So no, I thought I'll turn it off for the last little bit, and I can start to wind myself down, because it's,
looks good.
it's 20
really
to 7
good.
now. Does that look better? It's a bit orange. So there's something else, isn't there, as well? Because I recently completed my Buteyko practitioner course with Patrick, and I've just got my final exam to do. I was just going through, looking at the desk. Oh crikey, there's a few questions I just need to swat up on before I submit that. But there's something as well that it's good to get your thoughts around when we breathe functionally, or when we have more CO2. There's some correlation there with the smooth blood vessels opening up when we've got a better level. I don't want to say more CO2, probably the right levels of CO2. And so there's something around nasal breathing functionally, breathing at a pace of 5.56 breaths per minute. And I think they've shown that people's blood pressure can start to come down just with a couple of minutes of really gentle breathing. So that also has an impact. So when we're talking about how to get more oxygen to the brain and how to get more oxygen to all the tissues, this nasal breathing is definitely something, because it's kind of helping us open up a bit more, isn't it? Oh, you've gone on mute. Why have you gone on mute? If I muted you, can you hear me? Why have we lost you there? Maybe your mic's died. This is live, everybody. Apologies. I think your lapel mic has died. But yeah, I'll just carry on talking while we wait for Grace. So he's gone back to his other camera there. Still can't hear you, sir. Oh no, it's live. It's all gone terrible. You can definitely hear me because I can see you jigging. So yeah, it's a slow nasal breathing. There's 5.56 breaths per minute. There's definitely something to this in terms of, let's just slow it down. Sometimes you can be next to somebody, you can hear them panting, you can hear them.
You can hear me now.
Really labored breathing. I can hear you now. Yeah. So I was just going into a bit of dysfunctional breathing. Actually, it'd be good to maybe for you to summarize. Actually, how would you? If someone says to you, what's dysfunctional breathing? What would you say the kind of key 5 or 6 things might look like there for people to watch out for?
I missed that last question. I heard dysfunctional breathing.
Yeah. So how would you describe to people, if someone said, what is dysfunctional breathing? What would be maybe the 5 or 6 key points to look out for there?
Firstly, it's different for everyone. So what might be dysfunctional for some people might not be dysfunctional for others. But I think anything where your breathing is a little bit chaotic, irregular, hyperventilation is a pretty classical dysfunctional breathing pattern. If the breath is what I call, or what a lot of people will call, horizontal, so when you breathe in, everything comes up rather than everything, no, that's the wrong way around. That is vertical. So if your breath is vertical and you pull everything up, rather than horizontal where you breathe deep, is quite a common breathing pattern that is paradoxical breathing, where when you breathe in, you pull the belly in, and when you breathe out, the belly goes out, and it's the wrong way around. And quite often, because people are thinking, oh, I need to engage the core, everything's pulled in down here. So actually that affects how the breath coming up into the upper chest. So that's where you sort of like get that idea of chest breathing from, because it's all vertical. But as I say, you still do breathe into the chest. I think that's a pretty common one. A fast breath rate, so fast, quick, light breaths. But again, that's sort of like if people are anxious, and anybody, like when you're coming on to do a live podcast, you have to really just sit and focus and center yourself, because it's easy to everything to start coming up here. So again, what I say in terms of breath work is just point out the things that you think are maybe not helping you, because again, we really don't want to be judgmental. Oh, I sigh a lot. Now, that could be a reason why you're sighing a lot. So it's not just about stopping the sigh, it's thinking, why are you sighing a lot? A sigh is bringing your body back to balance. There's a guy called Andrew Huberman, a fascinating guy, do loads of podcasts. And he talks about the psychological sigh, which is a good sleep practice, actually. So it's 2 breaths in,
yes,
and a breath out. And again, you watch kids crying. And apparently they did a sleep study and noticed that people were doing that in their sleep. So if you're doing that, it doesn't necessarily mean to say it's dysfunctional breathing if it's every so often. If it becomes a habit and somebody's doing that as a habit, the yawning a lot, and it's habitual, then that's when you look at that client. So maybe that's dysfunctional breathing.
Yeah, no, thank you. Nicola, I think you just jumped into how much have I missed. We're nearly finished, Nicola, but you can definitely go back and rewatch it. But if you've got a question, stick it in quickly. Kai Lon has said, how should one place their tongue during nasal breathing? Yeah, how should one place the tongue during nasal breathing? So where would you place your tongue?
That's a very good question. The ideal place, and again, from a Tai Chi point of view, Qigong point of view, the ideal place is just resting it. And it's always difficult because you're going, but it's just almost like resting the tongue on the tongue on the roof of the mouth. But again, if that creates stress, then I wouldn't over worry about where the tongue position is on the roof of the mouth. But there's quite a few theories out there. In Qigong, they will say it connects the front and the back line. So when you're doing your microcosmic orbit, the energy is almost like an energy point. It's like connecting the wires at the top. The other really good thing I've found with this is, and it's a fascinating thought, it's part of your core. Now, if you think about the fascia and how that tongue is connected all the way down the throat, all the way down, all the way through the fascia, through the organs, into the core area. And actually, this is the belly, isn't just the core area. It's a really good way to engage the core. So if I'm running and I'm resting the tongue on the roof of my mouth, it almost, going back to the point we made at the beginning, it almost like puts my posture in a good place. If I'm running, then you've lost connection. And it's almost like if you imagine like a beach ball and you've got the stopper in, is containing the energy. That's a good way of putting it. I like that. Containing the energy within the body. Whereas if you take the stopper out, it's deflated. So if you're practicing that when you're doing any endurance exercise, just rest it on the roof of the mouth.
Yeah, no, that's really interesting. I think we talked about this actually when we had one of our catch-ups, but I'm tongue-tied, and I was speaking to Patrick McEwen about this, and then he recommended Dr. Mike Mew, who, by the way, I've done a podcast with, and he's going to be on very soon. Fascinating guy, so looking forward to sharing that with you. But apparently there's when people have their tongue tie sorted, they get suddenly this real release of tightness. I guess not everybody, but this is just something anecdotal that they were sharing. And I'm very, very tight here, very, very tight. So I don't know, I'm trying all these stretching exercises. I'm doing it now for almost a year, and something's loosened up, but I don't know, there's part of me thinking, oh, I wonder what would happen if and when I get that snip done on the tongue, but we'll see. I'm a bit scared. Just quickly whizzing through the last couple of questions. I saw one which I thought would be a good one to ask. Where's it gone? I can't see it now because there's so many in here. Oh no. Okay. Somebody talked about mouth taping. We haven't really gone into that. We'll have to do that next time, I guess. But mouth taping, there's some videos on here, and we can definitely do that. I think we're going to have to do part 3, Gray. By the way, there is a part 1 of this. So after you finished here, please go back. Okay, I think we're probably towards the end, actually. So do you want to take us out with a bit of a movement / breath exercise?
Yeah.
Are you going to struggle now with your mic?
No.
Again?
I'll just pull this out there, so you should still be able to hear me. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
Can you still hear okay there? That's good. So let's go back to, get rid of that chair. take your feet about shoulder width apart again. A little bit of bend in the knees. And let's do some flexion and extension. Now, if you know yoga, think of the cat-cow movement when you're on hands and knees, but this time you're going to do it standing. I'm going to show you from the side. So you're going to have a little bit of bend in the knee there. So a little bit of give in the knees. And then this is a great one for opening up the chest, Mike. So you bring the elbows up and then you breathe in through the nose and open up and look to the sky. And then you tuck the pelvis and then rounding. Keeping the knees bent, you extend the back, extend the spine, open up, and then tuck in. And let's get a nice rhythm going. You might hear some crunches or creaks. Now, with any of this, you mentioned stretching. Don't stretch. Think of just elongating and opening and creating space and letting the energy flow. So there's a strength in it, Mike. As you're coming down, you bring your elbows together. So it's almost like you're curling, that's it, curling up. So curling up, tucking the pelvis. And then you extend, open up, lift your sternum here. So if you think heart to sky, yeah, and open up and look up as well. None of this should be forced. So it's not about hoiking your arms out of your shoulder sockets. Smooth move, bring the elbows back and down. And now let's coordinate the breath. So you breathe in through the nose and you breathe out. And the breath is smooth. And you breathe out rhythmically. Now, if this is a little bit slow, if the breath starts to shake a little bit, and you shouldn't feel any air hunger doing this, you might need to just do it a little bit quicker if this is a little bit slow for you. But the movements need to be smooth and controlled, and the breath needs to be smooth and controlled. I was going to say don't stop, but I think Mike has frozen.
Oh no.
You're frozen. I was going to say you stopped. He's stopped. He's back stopped. But you're frozen. You got a great picture. There you are.
There we go.
You're back. I thought he stopped. He stopped.
No. Oh, thanks for telling me. At least that's
Let's
good.
do a couple more. So after we finish this podcast, Google the word pandiculation.
Ooh. I just
That's your homework. Let's do a couple more.
I'm not keeping very good time with you.
And then rest there. The key thing to watch on that is when you are extending, watch that you're not just compressing the back. Because like you said there, Mike, a lot of us, me included, because I spent 20 years as a graphic designer, are tight in this thoracic spine. So we do a back bend, and what we do is we just keep this locked, or we keep this as a block, and then we just compress the lower back.
Yeah.
So what you want to do is you want to be low, and you almost want to keep a neutral spine here. So you want to keep that spine a little bit of curve, obviously, but where you want to extend is here through the sternum, and then look up, and then you get a really nice back extension through the thoracic spine, and you open up the chest. And then what you're doing is you're creating space to allow the energy or to allow the breath to flow into the body. Another one. Are we all right for one more?
Let's do it. Let's do it. Yeah, of course.
So shoulder width apart with the feet, palms together. So we'll add, I know we didn't really talk, well, we talked a little bit about sports performance. We're going to do some extended pauses at the end of the exhale. If this stresses anybody out, if anybody's got any cardiovascular issues, if you've got any high blood pressure, if you're pregnant, don't extend the pause. But we're just going to put a little bit of extended pause at the end of the exhale on this practice. We'll just do the practice first, and then I'll count the breath in. So let's just get the practice going. So here's another arm one for you. So you open up and you look up, And then you soften and you just put a little bit of energy through the hands. So push in a little bit and then open. So you can do upper body strength training without weights. Just use yourself. Push in a little bit and then open. And soft. And scratch your nose. And open. And soft. So you could think strong as you open up. Strong. And then soft. Now, just to be really subtle, what I don't want is strong and stop, stop and stop. So you're getting to the end and then you come back. Let's coordinate the breath. So breathe in through the nose, out through the nose. In through the nose, out through the nose. Notice you can't hear me breathing, so I'm not going, I'm pulling air in. I'm just letting air flood into the body. So just open up the space and just allow the air, allow the energy to pour into the body. And now on the next one, we're just going to breathe in. Breathe out. And then push the hands together and pause. 2, 3, 4, 5. So you're pausing the breath and then breathe in. And breathe out. And let's do a pause again. So pause, push, 2, 3, 4, 5. Breathe in. Breathe out. Let's do another pause if you feel comfortable with that. Pause, push, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you need a little bit of break in between, just do a normal breath in and a normal breath out. Let's go for one more pause and go for a little bit longer. So go to the point where you feel as if you need to take a breath, but you're not going into stress. So pause. Feel as if you're squeezing or compressing all of that energy into the body. As with the pause, you're not going to run out of oxygen. You're actually oxygenating the body. And then when you get to the point of light air hunger where you can breathe in easily through the nose, you'll need a bigger breath. Breathe in. And breathe out. Breathe in. And breathe out. Bring the palms down to just below the belly. And we'll just lift up. Breathe in. Breathe out. A little bit of softness in the knees. Use the ground as well. Breathe in, extend, lengthen the spine. Breathe in, little pause at the top. Soften and relax. Breathe out. Breathe in nice and strong, lengthen. You can almost push strong. Imagine you're holding something above the head. Pause and breathe out. So you've been strong, breathe in, strength, 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 lengthen. And breathe out. One more like that. Breathe in, lengthen, open up the spine, open up the front of the spine. Breathe out. Step the feet together. Rest the hands on your belly. If you're comfortable, just close your eyes. And I'm just going to give you 30 seconds in silence to explore bamboo in the wind. And then on the next in-breath, at the top of the next in-breath, just slowly open your eyes if you had your eyes closed. Feel the feet in contact with the ground, just step the feet out. Have a bit of a pandiculate if you need one.
That's a great word.
And thank you.
Thank you, Gray. Where can people find you?
Actually, at the minute, I've just put a little offer on my training portal. So the easiest address to find me is adventures.training. And there's an offer on there. If you just pop in your email and your name, you get a free download. And I'll send you a link to a short video as well. So I've just got a few of these exercises on a video. So you can just have those exercises to watch on that video, and a little bit about feeling the ribs, feeling the back of the body. So that's a video you can watch on there. Or you can email me. My email is hello@adventuresinmovement.com.
Wonderful. Well, that was fantastic. And I really feel just a little bit more open now, a little bit more relaxed. And I definitely needed that. And I hope you guys had a crack at that as well, that you were watching. Somebody asked a question around air hunger. And I think, you know, that's a whole topic for another time. And we've got some videos on this channel. If you type in Buteyko or light, slow and deep, you can definitely find some exercises. But it's a little bit like what we just there, light breath holds. But I think we'll get into that in a part 3. But stick your questions in the comments below. I'll do my best to answer them. And maybe Gray, if you see some questions in there, you can jump in and answer some questions the guys have got. And I think that's it. So until next time, thank you. I'll just do a quick close. So appreciate your time. We had a few technical issues getting started, but we got there in the end. Thank you guys for being here. We've got a ton of breath casts now with you know, Patrick McEwen, Laird Hamilton, big wave surfer. We've got Niraj from Soma. We've got some wonderful guests. Belisa Varanich, if you've not checked that one out yet, she runs the breathingclass.com. Fantastic breath cast with her as well. And we've got loads of new stuff coming. So if you haven't done so, gently tap our subscribe bells. We really appreciate it. And we'll see you on the next one. So I'll give you a quick wave because I need to, when I see the wave, I need to end the live stream because there's a bit of a lag. So I'll say goodbye now, and we'll just awkwardly wait now, Gray, for the wave to happen on my other screen, and then I'll end the live stream. And thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks for asking me, Mike.
There's the wave now.